Adjei. It's FBC, guanu, guanu. Baby, you go love me, your love is sweet like tangerine. Baby, you go hug me, your love is sweet like. Baby, I go love you, your love is sweet like.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi. So today we're here talking about the challenges that face women. And my first question to you is there any difference between the treatment of Africans and Americans as far as in the workplace?
Actually, yeah. I think there is a difference. I think people assume, because I'm in technology, right? That people assume that technology comes from America.
Right.
And so some African chick is not going to know the technology that's created by the white Americans, right? So yeah, there is a difference. I know that I've been in business now for 17 years, and I know that often, like, I've gone to meetings with male colleagues, white male colleagues, and they'll start talking to them, exchanging business cards with them, assuming that they're the ones that, maybe I'm like the secretary or whatever, and I don't really care as long as they sign the contract. I'll take it any way I can get it.
I completely agree. I mean, for me in the creative space, I think when it comes to the creative side, I think the respect is the same, but when it comes to business, actually sort of having money and giving money to a project, then I think that Americans or Europeans are sort of put on a higher pedestal, I remember having a TV network say that the show, it's from Ghana, like, what is that? Like, how is that going to generate income? So I think that the respect for African women in the creative space on the business side isn't where it needs to be.
But don't you think that Africans do it to themselves? Don't you feel that sometimes the Africans will be the first to question an African versus an American?
I mean, I think it goes both ways. I don't think it's just the African questioning. I think that for a long time we've been sold this idea that whatever happens outside of Africa is better.
Yeah.
So that's something that's in the back of our heads. But I think that we are also clear, or we're starting to become clear, that we have power and we have innovation. And I think that's sort of building our confidence enough to say, you have to pay me the same thing that you're paying the next person. Yeah.
So how challenging is it for you as a creative person to be a woman?
I think I have the same challenges that any woman in business has, especially, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth, but especially living on the continent. I feel like the moment I'm in a meeting with a man, the conversation always has to start with it being personal. I can't go straight to what I need, the point. Yeah. There's always a little, okay, so where do you live? Are you single? Before,
who's your husband?
Are you married? If you're not married, why aren't you married?
But don't you think that's part of African culture, to do the smoothing? It's you're coming from a U.S. perspective, maybe, where people are very direct. Don't you think that Africans just have a tendency to want to know the person better, whether it's male or female?
It's true, it is part of the culture. Like in Ghana, when you come to someone's house, there's a full 10 minutes of small talk before discussing anything. So it is, but I think that we can't move away from the fact that when it's a woman and a man, it's just heightened. There's more of that sort of moving around the bush and not getting to the point. So for me, I find that difficult, being a woman and trying to push through an industry that's very new on the continent. That's already a challenge. And then having to deal with the barrier of dealing with a man and the nuances that comes with that, it's a little challenging. So as a female entrepreneur, as a boss lady, are there any traps that you think women in business should avoid? And if they are, what are they?
I think if you get too caught up on, I'm a woman, I'm not going to be able to make it, it's a man's world. If you start telling that story to yourself, you will fail. So I think the best thing is like, yeah, I'm a woman, so I'm probably better able to do whatever it is than the next person. So I think you can't get into the complain mode, into the victim mode, because that's how you'll be treated. So yeah, that's what I would say, is to avoid as a trap is to undermine yourself. because you're the first proponent of you, right? And so if you don't believe in you, nobody else will.
I completely agree. I think in business, being a woman should be an advantage, and that's how you should approach it. I'm a woman, so I know I can do this twice as quickly, twice as hard, because we're used to multitasking. That's what we do as women generally. The biggest trap would be to not believe in yourself.
Your show is about the African woman.
Yes.
Right? So tell me, how do you define the modern African woman?
Ah, the modern African woman, I love her so much. I think the modern African woman is the woman who is in tune to herself and her space. But more than that, is clear that whatever work that she does should impact her continent. I think for a long time, being African was sort of, it was a taboo in many places, you know? I remember being in college, and if someone found out you were African, it's like you wanted to hide because they came with all these stereotypes. But I think the modern African woman understands the power in knowing who she is, knowing where she's from, and making sure that whatever work she's doing is, even if it's slow, it's being slowly siphoned back into her culture. The modern African woman is strong, but she's always been. I feel like the African woman has always been strong. But I think the modern African woman just has a stronger voice and a stronger place right now to really speak her mind and speak her work and speak her life.
So you think that the difference between the image, I would say the image of the traditional African woman versus the image of the actual reality of the modern African woman is this idea of being able to speak your mind.
Absolutely. It's the idea of being able to be who you are completely out in the open. So, I mean, if we take an African city, for instance, I think one of the things that has resonated and also has brought a lot of criticism to the show is the idea that these women are so sexually free. But that is the modern African woman. You know, we are sexual beings. We do explore our sexuality. And I love the fact that we can show that, you know, not without backlash, but that is the modern African woman. So I think that we've always existed in the same way. It's just that now we're more outspoken and more confident and more brazen in showing who we are.
But how do you, how the older generation of African women, how do they perceive the modern African women? Are they jealous, envious, or are they more judgmental?
Honestly, I think they're proud. I just want to believe that they're proud to see a different version of themselves. Thank you.